Hi everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk about a intuitive way to niching. So a couple weeks ago I polled the women in my Facebook group, Epona Rising Women Circle, in case you want to check me out on Facebook, and I asked them a couple questions of what would they find most valuable for me to sort of talk about, and the idea around sort of niching was one of the things that sort of popped up. And I have a bit of a different angle to niching. I know that's something that when you're first starting your coaching business or any service-based business, they talk a lot about knowing your niche and your kind of ideal clients. And I know when I first got into, running and starting my own business, I also kind of struggled with this. And I have a bit of a different angle to how do we find our niche that I want to do the video today. So if you're struggling at all with knowing who your ideal client is or how to identify them, and other sort of formulas of finding your ideal client or niche hasn't worked for you, listen in. So my first sort of approach to this, so niching really is, I think, kind of aligned both with who your ideal client is and what is the sort of specific service that you're offering them, as sort of to go in like what exactly is niching. And so I like to first start with, doing a little bit of work around how do we identify who we're serving, right? Because I think to know sort of our ideal client, or sometimes what I like to call it our ideal collective, we really need to know how do we identify them in a way that kind of resonates for us. So this is what I think about when I'm sort of doing this process for myself, or I'm also walking a client through this. So you want to think about, like, what is the journey that your client is on right now that you sort of feel compelled to serve, right? What's happening in their life, so for example, you might work with women, let's say, that where they are in their journey is they're facing some type of a crossroads in their life, sort of a transition, and they're needing some support navigating that sort of crossroads. So I always like to think at what stage of the journey are your people on that you feel most inclined to serve, and also, and this is really important, that you also feel purposeful and fulfilled by serving. I think there's something that I sort of witness around niching is we sort of have this idea sometimes that we want to create a niche that might maybe be profitable for our business, or that we feel we should address, but it's not necessarily something that also lines up for us. So I'm a really big advocate for, we need to love what we do and who we serve. And so I always like to, when I talk about the conversation around how do we find our ideal client, that we also take in consideration that we're thinking about who lights us up the most, right? I know when I was first starting my practice, I sort of had a couple of, different areas I wanted to serve. One of them was youth. And I kind of realized as I started to work more with that demographic that I didn't enjoy it as much. And so I sort of really want to think about both from the ideal client perspective is who maybe am I most equipped to serve, and also who lights me up. So that's a really, really important thing to think about is what is, what jazzes you up too, who energizes you. So we kind of want to, I would sort of take a journal out, go through some of these prompts. Where are people at the stage of the journey that they are seeking me out? What are they experiencing? And what is the outcome that they're looking for? So when they talk about like pain points, so what's the actual experience of your ideal client? If I was going to use me as an example, I work with a lot, predominantly women, entrepreneurs that are kind of similar like me. They are very purpose driven, and they come to me usually because they're stuck either with fear, or they just feel really overwhelmed with how do I even begin to start or build my business. But they sort of are at a place where they can't deny their calling or purpose any longer or procrastinate on it, but they need somebody to help them move through the fear and procrastination, and also create something that feels purposeful and fulfilling, I think, in that space of service, but also it fills them up. So a lot of the times people come to me because they're suffering from things like burnout, depletion, they're kind of at the stage where they almost want to walk away. So these might be people that are already doing something. How they're doing it is not working for them any longer. So it's kind of a couple, layers to that. So you really want to flesh that out. So what are they experiencing? What are their challenges? What are their struggles? If you don't know, then this is where you want to do a little bit of research of really thinking about, we're kind of going to get to those other places too, of who do I feel really drawn to serve, and who, again, am I, let's say, qualified to serve? What stage of the journey are they on? Are they people that are sort of awakening to their spirituality, for example? Like, I have some clients who work with people that are just in that place of, kind of waking up spiritually. They want to learn about their intuition. And so, I have a certain client that's what she kind of addresses. So you want to think about that. What stage of the journey are they on? What are the challenges that they're experiencing? And then what are the outcomes that they're trying to get to? So what's their kind of before and after? And I think that it's important to kind of get a really intimate knowing of not just using kind of jargon words, but like, what is their actual experience, right? What are they experiencing? A lot of the times I find we can be our ideal client. So if you think about where you were a year ago or 2 years from now, and what got you on the path of support, or what you were seeking, and what were you experiencing? What were your fears? What were your doubts? What were your challenges? So you want to flesh that out. Then we want to go to what are the qualities of your ideal client? Because I think this is really important, because I think oftentimes, especially with the niching too, we want to know who our audience is and who we're speaking to, right? So for me, my clients have values around spirituality, personal development. Some of them are nature-based, obviously, because I have my retreats that I run. They are purpose-driven, so they have a value of purpose. So I really like to also think about what are their values and what are their qualities that are both, again, people, like, who are your people? Who are your people? And then from your own sort of journey, if this is sort of a place of, I don't really know who I serve, or I don't really want to know what I want to do, think of your own past and your own wounding and the things that you've gone through. Like, what has been your greatest healing journey? And what was that journey that you were on, right? What were your wounds? And I find often things that we've sort of journeyed through that has sort of been like our kind of hero's quest is often the thing that we address. So I know for me, for example, kind of my niche of working with, other women, entrepreneurs, and I don't also use the word entrepreneurs, because I find, like, myself, I don't always identify with that term. I work with, the women I work with are very purpose driven, and they're wanting to bring their gifts out into the world, right? I was very similar. I've been on a path where I am really called to purpose. I want to be living my purpose in a big way. The journey of moving through my own fears and doubts has been a big part of my experience. So my sort of niche is also kind of aligned to my journey, right? So once we sort of take all of these pieces, of what's the journey that people are on, what are their challenges, what are they looking for, then we can kind of pare down and find what are sort of our niches. And let me offer something else to you in terms of, like, I don't even use the word niche, to be honest. I use the word, for people that have followed me know that I use the word of knowing what our medicine is. And medicine is a Native American, it's terminology in their philosophy that everything has medicine. And I really believe that we also all have medicine. So there's things that we're meant to do in the world. And our niche is really actually our medicine and our wisdom and our purpose. And so for maybe some people who are like me, who, like, you can't kind of wrap your head around these concepts, thinking about of, like, what's my medicine? And again, what is sort of the journey that people are on, that they're seeking me out to help them, through the things that they're experiencing, is sort of a much easier way to claim that. So if I think of it in that terminology, it's really easy for me to be like, okay, I know what I'm here to do on the planet, and I know that this is the paths or the journeys that I'm called to serve, and that's really what I'm speaking through. So I don't kind of use some of those terms. So that might really resonate with you in terms of, you think about what's been my hero's journey and the wounding that I've been through, that has now really compelled me of, this is really what I want to create space for other women or other people, or men, or, you do want to think about, do I want to work with, I feel the deep calling to work with women. I do work with some men when it comes to my equine work, but my coaching practice is all women. And there's something around, I think, the plights of the things that women have to journey through that really speak to me, as a fellow woman, that I really feel like I want to hold space for. So there's a real resonance for me in that too. So I also look at niching as almost like it's a claiming of saying, here's who I am in the world, and here's the path and the journey that I really feel called to serve in others. And I think sometimes when we don't have a clarity of what our niche is, it really also comes down of, I'm afraid to really claim something powerful for myself and what I'm doing. So if you could just pretend for a second, or even in your journal say, if I knew what I was here to do and what my medicine was and what I'm here to hold space for, what would that be? And see sort of what comes up. And then in terms of like giving some more practicalities of it, think about who's somebody in your life that that would be like an ideal client for you. What are they going through? It could be a friend or a family member. What is their journey? And that is sort of your niche. I'm trying to kind of give a couple of examples here to, bring that sort of forward. I have a client right now that's working with me in one of my programs, and she is a vet. She really wants to help other vets, through some of the kind of emotional self-care things, because she is a vet and she's had a lot of struggles being in that industry and the things that she's had to go through. So she feels really moved to create a container for other vets that are struggling as she was, again, with burnout or numbing out in the job, or not knowing how to give space to their own emotions and their process. So she wants to create a safe place for other veterinarians. That's a perfect example that really resonates to her journey. The other thing I really want to quickly sort of say on this video is you can have a couple of different niches. So I have a lot of diversity in my practice. I do work with other women entrepreneurs who are in the place of, I want to know what my medicine is, I want to create my purposeful containers, and I need some help kind of navigating that, both from a personal growth aspect and moving through my fears, and also just the practicalities of like, how do I create my programs, how do I price it, et cetera, et cetera. I have a branch in my work where I train other equine guided facilitators, so other people that are called to do the work with horses. And then I also sort of have a new company where I work with other coaches around their development as coaches and in their leadership. So I have a couple of branches of stuff that I do. I think that's totally fine, as long as those are really clearly identified. So I like diversity. I like having different places that I play in, but those branches are really clearly identified. And so again, what's the journey people are on? What are their experience? What's the journey that you feel really compelled to support? What is it that you really want to claim that maybe you're too afraid to claim? Think about it in terms of, what is my medicine and what's the journey that I'm here to really support in others? And let sort of that guide that process for you, and see if you can kind of find a little bit of your clarity through that process. As a side, I do have a couple of ebooks that I've created to go deeper into these concepts. Finding your medicine is one of them that kind of really goes into how do we find our medicine. And then I also have some, self-study programs and courses for women entrepreneurs that are kind of struggling with some of these pieces. So I'm going to add some of those links into the YouTube video here, so you can go check those out if you have, you want sort of a deeper support. Questions or comments, please let me know, because I'm always happy to go deeper, and I hope that was helpful. And go forth and claim the work that you are here to do in the world.